Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. For today's video we're going to be taking a look at the Transformers Legacy leader class, Blitzwing. And I think it's safe to say that along with the Stunticons, Blitzwing here was one of the most highly anticipated characters to grace Legacy. And when I tell you guys that he's delivered, oh my goodness, this is probably the best mainline Blitzwing that we've ever seen, and it's quite rare for me to in fact actually be unable to put a figure down upon receiving him, but this is one of those rare instances where I've literally been messing with this guy for so long, and it's simply down to the fact that not only do I love Blitzwing, but this figure is awesome. It is indeed a triple changer. It transforms from a robot into a tank into a jet, and what is not to love about that? Now, much like Siege Astro Train, Blitzwing here is roughly Voyager in terms of scale, but certainly makes up for it in regards to parts count, as well as kind of the engineering. He is rather intricate, and had they put him in the Voyager class price point, I definitely think those budgetary constraints would have majorly impacted the overall look of the figure. So you can see here in regards to robot mode, straight off the bat, come on, this has got to be the best look for this character that we've ever seen officially created. You can see just in that head sculpt alone, it looks wicked. That massive red visor, you can see the silver metallic there for the mouthpiece looks awesome, and the entire head has been coated front to back and even the side in this really vibrant looking yellow, and even the back detail looks really well done as well. As we take a look here at the shoulders, you can see some really nice sculpt work. The purple plastic they've used too is great, and the beige. It really does complement each other very nicely, and as we just move the arm up, you can see all of this circuitry as well as mechanical detailing on the back section of this wing. And as we flip here to the back, surprisingly, I think the kibble management is actually on point. This guy doesn't have any pieces of which personally I think stand out, and everything looks exactly how it should do. You can see we've got the wings sticking off to the side. Really nice sculpt work where this main turret section is concerned, with the Decepticon insignia slap bang there at the top. Even the back of the thighs are completely filled out. Once again, it is a Voyager roughly in terms of scale, so you can see that they definitely have distributed the plastic to fill out that leader price point. He literally is not hollow in any spots that at least are obvious. You can see here for the chest unit, very nicely sculpted. I think that looks great. The paintwork also has turned out really well, and trust me, when we get down to transformation, you guys will be so surprised to see just how much has actually gone into this torso. There is indeed double layers, so we've got the cockpit here, and then this additional piece that comes over the top of the head in order to conceal that. It's really well done. You can see some nice metallic silver here for the chest piece, as well as here for the skirt region. That purple plastic just looking fantastic. And the shoulders too also look really nicely done. Something which I'm a huge fan of is that initially, had they not included some of these filler pieces, the forearms literally would have been hollow, much like Kingdom Galvatron. But you take this component here from the tank, slide it over the top, and it literally fills that out. I thought that was such a neat touch, and had this been a Voyager, I'm almost certain that we wouldn't have seen this on this figure. You can see the fingers and the thumb don't look too bad. As we take a look at the thighs, I really love the sculpt work, as well as the fact that they've been completely coated in this really awesome metallic silver front to back. And you can see here where the legs are concerned, these two also look great. We've got some nice sculpt work here at the front, as well as here along the side. Of course, we've got this piece here of the back wing, which sticks out at the front, which also looks cool. And the thrusters do indeed actually become the front, as well as the back of the foot, which is really nicely done. Now, in regards to articulation, Blitzwing has got a fantastic range. So here at the head, it can look all the way up due to it being on a ball joint and the transformation hinge joint, so you can definitely get him into some of those flying poses, which I just thought was so cool. We can also tilt it down to that far, as well as kind of side to side. It can rotate the full 360, mainly due to transformation, and of course considering it's on a ball joint. Now the shoulders are a tricky one. They're very similar in regards to G2 Laser Prime in the sense that they are fixed into place, so you can't take this here and hinge it back and forwards. But for those of you who have seen the cartoon series, to be fair, these mainly stay fixed in all the time anyhow. So in order to actually access the shoulder joint, you are going to want to hinge this flap up, which does allow for roughly a 90-degree range of motion. Sadly, they can't hinge back due to the nature of the design and some of this kibble, but they can hinge out to the side, full rotation here at the bicep, as well as a 90-degree bend there at the elbow and full wrist rotation. The same can also be said here for the waist. This does rotate the full 360, which is wicked. The legs can kick forwards that far, however, sadly, can't really kick back at all due to this section slightly hanging further down than maybe I'd like, so it does bump into the back of the thigh, but he can do the splits to a pretty decent range, rotation here at the thigh, as well as a way past 90-degree bend here, only on a single hinge joint. And I love how they've extended this knee piece so that it isn't hollow. That's a really nice touch in my opinion. And then finally, as we come here to the ankles, these are awesome. These have got probably one of the best joints that I've seen since Earthrise Leader Optimus Prime. You can literally get this guy into any pose that you want. So in all, I'm thoroughly impressed. By far, one of the best Legacy figures that I've reviewed so far over on the channel. Now, despite him being smaller in scale, I think think that not only have they made up for it where the kind of the parts count and the engineering is concerned, but also in regards to accessories. So first up, we get this really awesome silver sword, much like we saw in G1. However, this time they've completely picked the blade out here in metallic silver. Personally, I actually think this looks better. You can see the sculpt work looks really nicely done. Even as we flip here to the back, not that much hollowness, which is cool. And we can just port it there into the figure's fists. And then mainly for jet mode, we do get a pair of identical blasters to kind of create the missiles. But here for bot mode, we'll merely just focus on one. You can see the sculpt work on these also doesn't look too bad at all. Overall, really impressive looking weapons. And of course, we can just snap that section into place. And probably the most peculiar accessories that Blitzwing comes with would be a pair of what can only be described as Energon Hulkbuster fists. These things are massive, and initially I did expect them to maybe be used to combine with Menasor, but they're a little too simplistic to maybe be combiner hands. I could be wrong, or I could be right. I guess we'll just have to wait and see, but they've been completely cast out of transparent red plastic. They do look pretty decent. You can see some nice purple highlights here where the forearms are concerned, and they do kind of act as missiles when we transform him into tank and jet mode, so that too is also a pretty nice touch. Now, in order to integrate them into the figure, you're just going to want to pop this out. It can be a little fiddly to do considering that the port is very shallow in there, but just try your best to align it up with the figure's fist and it will snap into place. Of course, let's do it here for this side. So just snap that section in, and there we've got Blitzwing with these really funky, crazy looking Energon fists. You can just imagine him demolishing the Autobots on the battlefield. Really cool, and they do in fact actually have a few points of articulation, so we do get a full rotation here where I presume the wrist is concerned, as well as a hinge joint where the four fingers are. So pretty decent, but once again I kind of think there are throwaway accessories. I maybe would have liked to have seen them completely scrapped and perhaps the budget been spent maybe on additional paint apps or some refinements to the transformation. And then in regards to weapon storage for some of the other accessories, we spin our attention here to the back, take the gun here, and that will just snap into that side. And the same can also be said here for this one. We take the sword and peg that on the back. And believe me when I say, when you've got everything, in fact, actually attached to this guy, he is a really hefty piece. Basically on par with, I'd say, the Siege Ultra Magnus. So you're definitely getting your bang for your buck where this figure's concerned. But it is really in regards to the parts count as well as the engineering that ultimately justify that leader price point. And turning to some size comparisons and starting off with what is undoubtedly the most important, here we have our Legacy Blitzwing compared next to the Siege Astro Train, and I think these guys look great with one another. For those of you who own Astro Train, you'll pretty much know what to expect in regards to scale and kind of heft here with Blitzwing. They are very similar in that regard, and you can see that as far as scale is concerned, I think they look fantastic with each other. I guess all we really need now is an updated version of Octane, and we'll kind of have the main trio of triple changes from G1, which will be really awesome to see. But if I were to choose between the two, I think I've got to give it to Blitzwing. Blitzwing is just so much more elegant in regards to some of the poses you can pull off, and the transformation, whilst is a little more simplistic than some of the conversion here for Astro Train, I think results in very awesome looking alternate modes. Here we have Blitzwing compared next to one of the most recent War for Cybertron leaders, that being Kingdom Galvatron, Legacy G2 Laser Prime, Earthrise Leader Class Double Dealer, Siege War for Cybertron Trilogy Voyager Class Megatron, Coronation Leader Class Starscream, Netflix Earthrise Optimus Prime, Commander Class Rodimus Prime, and then finally our smallest deluxe class, that being Earthrise Cliffjumper. And with all that being said, I believe that just about wraps it up here for Blitzwing in robot mode. So without further ado, let's get him transformed up into his first alternate mode, that of course being the tank. Now to begin with, you're going to want to take the head, rotate it so that the front is now facing the back. We can then come here to the forearms, hinge this panel down, take the fist, compress it into this hollow cavity, and then bend at the elbow to rotate this section here all the way around, and then this panel too will hinge up, and then we can compress the actual elbow joint until it soft clicks into place, and then just kind of sandwich this section between the back of the shoulder and this flap here at the front. Come to this side and repeat the exact same process, so hinge this out, and you can even see some of that awesome sculpt work that we've got embedded in that region. Honestly, they did not miss any tricks with this guy at all. So just fold that in, rotate this section here, and then hinge this piece here upwards. Snap that into place and just sandwich that once again in between these two flaps. We can then come here down to the lower section. You're going to want to take these back fins, just attach this as it is pegged into the front section of the toe, and come here to this side, repeat the same process, take the heel spurs and the front toes and just collapse them in, and these here will in fact actually form the thrusters, which is really cool. So I guess if you wanted to, you could kind of have Blitzwing actually using these in bot mode as his means to in fact actually fly, which is pretty cool. We'll then want to turn our attention here to the back, untap this section, which will then allow us to disengage the knee and shift this here until it does click into place, and then basically just take the wings here for tank mode and snap them into place, as we don't want to touch base with those just yet. Come here to this side and repeat the same process. So disengage the knee, snap that into place, and then just overlap all of these panels once more, snap that in there, and connect the two halves. Then we'll spin our attention here to the front of Blitzwing, and as mentioned beforehand, the torso is in fact comprised of multiple components. So you're first of all going to want to take this section, hinge this up and over the head, which will allow us to take this section here, hinge this up and disengage and bring this all the way to the back. Now whilst you're doing this, you're going to want to take these back fins. You can see how we've got a slot that will peg here into this tab. So snap these sections in, and then on the underside of this we've got two tabs here and here that will peg into those slots. So just snap those in as well. We can then flip here to the front, detach this section, and then rotate this here all the way around, and you'll notice how we've got two slots here and here that these two tabs will snap into, just like this. We can then compress that section, take the main turret and detach it from this back tab, and just kind of hinge it up and leave it in the middle for now. We can then take these sections and extend those out on these double hinge joints, and you'll notice as we turn here to the underside, we do have a slot that this piece, which is created via the hand flipping in, will in fact actually hook into. So hook this piece here in first, and then you can see we've got a tab and slot that there will peg into, just making sure everything is aligned up appropriately. We can then take this section, spin this here to the front, and just collapse that fin in. Come to this side and repeat the same process. So extend these double joints down, come here to the underside, attach this hook here to this slot, and then snap at the back, rotate the front tread forward, collapse this into place, and then in regards to the turret, it does just snap in there like so. And with all that said and done, here we have Blitzwing fully transformed up into the tank mode and actually looking really cool. I think Hasbro have done a fantastic job. You've still got to bear in mind that at the end of the day, this is a mass retail product, and for the price point, I do think this is a really cool tank mode. Of course, there's going to be some compromises made due to him being a triple changer, but tank mode is definitely my favourite out of his alternate forms. You can see that as we bring this in here for a closer look, the main turret itself has got really nice details. In particular would be that canopy section. We've got the Decepticon insignia slap bang there along the side. Sculpt work not looking too bad at all. We've got this huge barrel, which looks awesome. It would have been nice if it was Blast Effect compatible. Sadly, it's too small, so I do kind of think in that regard it's a missed opportunity. But as we take a look here from a side perspective, you can see there we've got some nice tread details. The purple does kind of break up the beige color scheme, but to be fair, once again, not looking that bad. And as we take a look here at the back, you can see the thrusters, of which look pretty cool. And then as we take a look at him here from a bird's eye perspective, we do in fact actually see a faux cockpit. There is in fact two of these sections, one at the front and then one here at the back, which we'll use for jet mode, which I thought was a really nice touch. It maybe would have been cool if an additional panel could have come down just to kind of conceal the back of the head, as it is bright yellow, so it does kind of stick out from the purple and the beige. And it also would have been nice if maybe this too could have found a way to reversed in order to fill this section out in beige. But once again, I'm really not going to detract that many points from this guy. I think for the most part, they've done a fantastic job. You can even see the design here of the front of the tank actually looks really cool. And as we flip here to the underside, you can see we've got 4 wheels, of which allow this guy to roll really freely along the ground. And of course, this here is fully articulated, so can rotate the full 360. So if you wished for this to be the front on perspective for the tank, you can definitely have that going on. And there is some articulation where the main turret itself is concerned. Due to transformation, it can hinge up and down too, which is a really nice touch. Now, as we bring those Energon fists here into the equation, these once again are slightly unsightly here for tank mode. Basically, you are just supposed to tab them here at the back, and I guess just kind of rotate those like so. From this angle, they don't look too bad, but as we flip here from a front-on perspective, considering they're completely hollow, I've got to be honest and say they definitely do look slightly ridiculous. So personally, I'm definitely just going to be setting them here off to the side for tank mode, but in all, not looking too bad at all in my opinion. And as we turn here for some very quick tank mode comparisons, we've got our Legacy Blitzwing compared next to the Cybertronian tank of Siege Megatron, just so you can see how these guys stack up. As we turn here to a side by side, you can see that Blitzwing is slightly more compact when in comparison to Siege Megatron, but trust me when I say so much more heavier and a lot more engineering goes on with this figure when in comparison to Megatron. And here for that triple changer size comparison, we've got Blitzwing compared next to Astro Train in his land-based alt mode, that of course being the locomotive, and I don't think looking too bad at all. If anything, I just kind of wanted to showcase that whilst Astro Train may be slightly longer in terms of length here for alt mode, they are very similar in regards to kind of parts count and heft. So if you own this guy, then you're definitely going to know what to expect in regards to Blitzwing. But as we just take a look here from a front-on perspective, I actually don't think these guys look too bad next to each other at all. And now, when it comes down to transforming Blitzwing from tank into jet mode, personally, I find this to probably be the most complex out of all three. So to begin with, you're going to want to come here to this canopy section, hinge this up, which does in fact actually reveal some really nice internal detail. We can take the tank turret and just hinge that here all the way to the back, and then just snap that over the top. Come here to this side, detach this section, flip this over, and snap that in there. Come to this side, and repeat the same process. We can then disengage these hooks from these side panels, flip here to the top, and take the turret itself and just kind of hinge it up here for now. We can then take this piece, detach that, and then flip here to the back and detach that, and just kind of hinge and ratchet this here one click just to kind of get it out of the way, as we are going to be working here down on the legs, and of course you don't want this continuously flopping down. So we can then split these sections, take these back fins, and just hinge those there out to the side. Take this section, fully extend that out, and of course repeat the same process. Snap that there back into place. And now here for the shoulders, you can see there we've got a pin joint. We're actually going to want to detach them from their bot and tank mode configuration, hinge those all the way down, and you'll notice how we've got this almost T cutout that will slide into this tab. So just slide that in there, come to this side, and repeat the same process. So just snap that in there nice and securely. And then in regards to these panels, much like robot mode, you're now going to want to recompress them back into their original configuration until they do snap into place. Snap that in there. And now as we come here to the underside, you'll notice that we've got these two tabs here and here that will peg into these two slots, and then these two slots here and here will be fulfilled via these two tabs. So hinge this over, snap that in there, snap that section in, and then as we come here to the front, snap that in, and do the same here for this side. Just snap that section in as well. We can then take this panel, peg that back into place, and then lift this transparent section up, which will then allow us to fold out the nose cone here for the jet mode. We can then take the tank turret, and to be honest, it's up to your own personal preference. You can have the actual cannon itself facing to the back as an almost third thruster, or you can rotate it here to the front. Personally, I actually don't find myself to have a preference, so for the purposes of the review, I'll just hinge it here to the back, so just snap that in there, and you'll notice that we've got a slot here on the underside of the wing that this tab will peg into, so just snap that in there, flip here to the top, fold out these panels, then just bring in the blasters. You can see here on the side we've got some 5mm ports that these sections will just tab into to create the missiles here for the jet mode, and do the same here for this side. So just snap that into place. And with all that said and done, here we have Legacy Blitzwing fully transformed up into what honestly I think is a pretty nice looking jet mode. For a triple changer, of course there's always going to be compromises made to each of the modes, but to be fair, for the most part I actually don't think this looks too dissimilar to how it appeared in the show, especially from a bird's eye perspective. If I had any major qualms with this, it's that maybe I would have liked to have been given the opportunity, much like the original G1 toy, to have been able to remove this entire turret section. That really is the only gigantic piece that is just kind of hanging out here on the underside, but other than that, I think it's a pretty cool chunky looking jet. You can see here from a bird's eye perspective some very nice sculpt work where the wings are concerned. We've got the Decepticon insignias slap bang here on either side with some nice sculpt work where these tail fins are, and you can see those huge purple thrusters with some nice sculpt work. It would have been cool had these kind of formed some 5mm ports for us to have inserted some blast effects, but that's literally just nitpicking. As we come here to the front of the nose cone, you can see a nice transparent red plastic, silver nose cone, as well as some pretty decent detailing. Maybe it would have been cool if they could have found a way to have perhaps tidied some of these components up, but once again, it is a mass retail leader figure. They can't necessarily work miracles where these types of characters are concerned, and as we just flip here to the underside, he does in fact actually have some landing gears, so we can just flip this out and have Blitzwing plonked there along the ground. Now, in regards to these energized weapons, to be honest, there really isn't a fixed place to in fact actually store them. Basically, it is the same as what we saw when we had him in tank mode. It is those same slots that you'll once again want to utilize. So just snap that section in. And from a back perspective, it doesn't look too bad. Of course, it adds one heck of a ton of kibble here. So personally, it's not something that I like to display. But then as we take a look here from the front, it doesn't look the greatest. And if you were to take this entire turret section and detach it and rotate this entire piece around, things just kind of bump into each other. You'll notice that as we compress this forwards, there's literally no clearance here for these pieces, as of course some of this undercarriage kibble is definitely a cause for concern. So personally, once again, much like tank mode, I do just tend to set them off to the side. But overall, definitely not a bad and final alt mode for our Legacy Blitzwing. And here for one final comparison before we wrap up the review, we've once again got Legacy Blitzwing compared next to Astro Train this time round in his shuttle mode, just so you guys can see how they stack up with one another. Overall, I think they look great. It is really just Octane now, of which we're missing to complete the original G1 trilogy of triple changes. You can see here, in terms of length, Blitzwing slightly smaller, but definitely is a lot more compact when in comparison to Astro Train. Let me know down in the comment section below, out of the two, which is the one that personally you guys think has turned out better. And so, some final thoughts for the Transformers Legacy Leader Class Blitzwing. Overall, I think it's a fantastic figure. For a triple changing Leader Class, I think they've done a fantastic job. Of course, with the tank and jet mode, there's always going to be compromises made, as this is still a mainline figure. It still is restricted by a specific budget and price point. Personally, I think they've done a fantastic job. It is still undoubtedly, in my opinion, the best mainline Blitzwing we've ever seen. And in regards to robot mode, I'd go as far as saying that it's near enough spot on. I think it looks fantastic. The head sculpt, the chest, the arms, the legs, everything looks great. Even the wings and the turret look awesome. I think accessory wise, he comes with a pretty decent range. I love the sword as well as the two blasters, although do find those huge Energon fists to be a slight throwaway. Personally, I would have much rather the budget perhaps have gone in to a few extra steps here for the jet form, but other than that, honestly, that's really just nitpicking. Transformation from bot mode into tank mode, it's fairly straightforward, results in a really cool looking tank mode. I maybe would have liked to have seen them kind of conceal that massive purple compartment that we've got at the top section of the tank, just to kind of make it look slightly more beige, but that too is also nitpicking. It's a very solid looking tank. I like the posability of the turret, and the transformation from tank mode into jet mode, much like the robot into the tank, is fairly straightforward, and I think it results in a pretty G1 accurate looking jet mode. In the cartoon series, Blitzwing wasn't 100% clean where the undercarriage was concerned, so I still do think they've done a fantastic job. The only area of which I would critique would be the actual turret itself. It would have been nice to have maybe been given the option to remove it, much like the original G1 toy, but other than that, I really do think this is a smashing figure, and as far as legacy releases go, I think this is by far the best out of the bunch. I'd really love to hear your opinions down in the comment section below on whether or not this is indeed the best mainline Blitzwing we've ever seen officially released. Do you guys think that it is by far the best we've seen for Legacy so far, and will you in fact actually be picking this up and adding it to the collection? As always, I thank you all so much for watching, and until my next review, I'll see you then. Thanks for watching.